All right, ditch those cough drops because today we are going deep on sore throat relief.
Oh, I love it.
We're going way beyond the basics, so we're going to be talking about hands-on techniques and even something called salt therapy.
Interesting.
Our sources today range from YouTube videos, medical articles, and even a really unique perspective from an Arabic source on the power of fasting and honey.
Wow, that is quite a range.
Yeah, so whether you're battling a stretchy throat right now or just want to be prepared for the next time one strikes, this deep dive is going to have something for everyone.
I'm ready.
Okay, let's start with Dr. Rowe, who seems to be all about tackling sore throats from the outside in.
Interesting.
His 2-minute sore throat fix actually focuses on massaging the back of the neck.
That is counterintuitive.
Yeah, it is.
It makes you wonder if he's tapping into something we often overlook, the body's interconnectedness.
Yeah.
He suggests this technique could be linked to lymphatic drainage.
Okay, lymphatic drainage, remind me, how does that system play into all of this?
Well, think of it as your body's waste removal system.
Okay.
It helps clear out toxins and excess fluid, which is key for reducing inflammation.
Okay, so Dr. Rowe's theory is that by massaging the neck, we can help stimulate that lymphatic flow and maybe reduce inflammation in the throat.
Potentially, yes.
But, I mean, is there any scientific evidence to back that up? Does massaging your neck really affect what's going on in your throat?
That's a great question. And honestly, the research on this specific technique is limited.
Okay.
However, we do know that the lymphatic system is a key player in immune function and inflammation.
Right, so it's not totally out there to think that stimulating that flow could have some benefit.
Right. It's like giving your body's cleaning crew a little boost.
Okay, I'm willing to try. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Rell also has this 5-point throat massage, which, well, let's just say it involves some interesting sounds.
He calls it goofy.
Okay.
It's a combination of self-massage at 5 points around the Adam's apple and neck, along with vocalizations, mostly yawning sounds.
So maybe not something to try out in public, but
Yeah.
what's the thinking behind combining the massage with those sounds?
It's likely about engaging the throat muscles and increasing blood flow, kind of like a warm-up for your throat, similar to what singers do.
Okay.
And he actually encourages doing this regularly, even when you don't have a sore throat, as a preventative measure.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like the idea of keeping things moving and preventing stagnation.
Now, Dr. Rowe also points out that sometimes sore throats can be a symptom of something else going on, specifically sinus issues and that dreaded postnasal drip.
Ah, yes, the feeling of mucus constantly dripping down the back of your throat.
Ugh.
It's not just annoying, it can lead to irritation and coughing, making that sore throat even worse.
And of course, Dr. Rowe has a massage for that too.
Of course he does.
He goes through this whole routine, hitting different points around the sinuses.
Yeah, he targets very specific areas like the frontal sinuses, above the eyebrows, and even along the sides of the nose.
But is there really any benefit to massaging those precise spots? I mean, it's not like we can manually push that mucus out,
Right, we don't know for sure.
Okay.
There's limited scientific evidence to support sinus massage.
Okay.
However, anecdotally, many people find it helpful.
So it could be a placebo effect, or maybe there's something to this idea of stimulating blood flow and drainage, even if we don't fully understand the mechanisms yet.
Exactly. And Dr. Rowe isn't the only one who suggests tackling sore throats with things you can find in your kitchen.
Oh.
Both he and Abraham the pharmacist recommend the good old-fashioned saltwater gargle.
Okay, I have to admit, sometimes I roll my eyes at these tried and true remedies.
Yeah,
But I mean, they've stuck around for a reason, right?
they have.
Like, what's the actual science behind that?
So the science behind the saltwater gargle is pretty simple.
Okay.
Salt water helps to draw out excess fluid, which can reduce swelling,
Okay.
and it creates an environment that's less hospitable to bacteria.
Right, like a salt bath for your throat.
They,
Now they both have slightly different methods for this.
they do.
Dr. Rose suggests warm water and a half teaspoon of salt, gargling for as long as possible.
Okay?
He even suggests adding honey or lemon for taste.
Interesting.
Now, Abraham the pharmacist, he's a bit more precise.
Okay.
He recommends boiling the water and using a full teaspoon of salt per cup, gargling at least 3 times with fresh solution each time. So it seems like there's some room for personal preference when it comes to salt concentration. You know, find what works for you.
Right, but gargles aren't the only thing Abraham the pharmacist has up his sleeve.
Oh.
He also offers advice on over-the-counter options and other home remedy.
Okay, let's dive into those pharmacist secrets.
All right.
What does he recommend for that annoying cough that so often comes with a sore throat?
He suggests a simple mix of warm water and honey for cough relief.
Simple.
But he does emphasize that honey should not be given to infants under 1 year old.
Good reminder.
Yes.
Now, what about stuffy or runny nose?
Okay, well, he recommends a saline rinse. using the same solution you'd make for the saltwater gargle.
Okay.
You can even use a neti pot if you want to really flesh things out.
I've always been a little intimidated to try a neti pot.
Yeah, they take a bit of getting used to.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind for my next sinus infection.
All right.
Now, I'm guessing Abraham the pharmacist also covers over-the-counter medications.
He does.
What's his take on those?
Well, he recommends paracetamol or ibuprofen for fever, which are both readily available.
Okay, and what about antihistamines for that runny nose? I always just grab whatever's on the shelf.
Well, he suggests loratadine or fexofenadine as his top pick specifically for a runny nose.
Okay.
He advises against using fetarizine for this purpose.
Interesting. Okay, I'll have to remember that.
It's good to have a pharmacist's insight.
It is, yeah.
And of course, he emphasizes that it's important to consult a pharmacist or doctor before taking any medication, especially if you have existing health conditions or are taking other medications.
Always good advice.
Yeah.
Now get ready for a shift in gears because we are about to enter the world of salt therapy.
Oh, I am intrigued.
This is as explained by Dr. Berg.
Okay.
So salt therapy, also known as halotherapy, is based on the idea of breathing in salt-infused air.
Right, you can experience this in a specialized salt room or even at home using a device called a halo generator.
It sounds so relaxing, but does breathing in salt actually do anything? I mean, we already get salt from our food.
Well, that's where it gets interesting. Dr. Berg highlights that salt, when inhaled, can have a different effect than when ingested.
Okay.
He talks about its antimicrobial properties, claiming it can fight viruses, bacteria, fungi, yeast, and even mold.
Yeah, that's quite a list.
It is.
But how does that work? Does the salt, attack these microbes directly?
That's one theory.
Okay.
There's also the idea that salt can help thin mucus, making it easier to cough up, potentially clearing out those microbes with it.
So it's kind of like creating this less hospitable environment for them?
Exactly, and Dr. Berg also mentions salt's anti-inflammatory effects, suggesting it could help reduce inflammation in the respiratory tract.
Okay, but isn't too much salt bad for you? I thought we were supposed to be cutting back.
You are right to be concerned about that.
Yeah.
It's important to differentiate between dietary salt and the type of salt used in halotherapy.
Okay.
Dr. Berg emphasizes that halotherapy typically uses pure sodium chloride, which is different from table salt or sea salt, which
Okay.
contain other minerals and impurities.
So it's about the quality and the method of delivery,
Exactly.
not just salt itself.
And while research on salt therapy is still ongoing, there's growing evidence suggesting it might offer relief for respiratory issues.
Fascinating.
It is.
Dr. Berg suggests several ways to experience salt therapy, from visiting the coast to investing in a halo generator for home use.
Yeah, he also mentions salt houses, which are these specialized rooms where the air is saturated with salt particles.
It does sound incredibly relaxing.
It does.
I'm definitely encouraged, but now I'm curious about the flip side of all this talk about mucus.
Okay.
We know it can be annoying, but it's also there for a reason, right?
Absolutely, mucus is not the enemy.
Okay.
It's actually your body's brilliant defense mechanism.
Right. It acts like a sticky trap, catching all those irritants and protecting our respiratory system.
Exactly. Think of it as your body's personal security detail,
I love that.
constantly working to keep you safe.
But, as with any security detail, sometimes it can get a little overzealous.
Yes, when that mucus production goes into overdrive, that's when we get that feeling of congestion and postnasal grip. And that's where our next source, a Healthline article, comes in.
Okay.
This article breaks down what causes that excess mucus and how to manage it.
So what are some of those culprits?
Well, it could be anything from acid reflux to allergies,
Okay.
infections like the common cold,
Mm-hmm.
even things like dry air or not drinking enough water.
So those are things we can control.
Yes, we can definitely control those.
They also mention irritants like smoke or fragrances.
Right, and certain medications.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing how many different factors affect our mucus balance.
It is, but the good news is this article also offers a range of strategies for managing that excess mucus.
It does.
From medical interventions to home remedies, there's a whole toolkit to choose from.
That's right.
So let's start with the medical side.
All right.
They mention expectorants, which help thin and loosen the mucus, as well as mucolytics.
Yes, those are prescription medications.
And of course, if the excess mucus is due to a bacterial infection, antibiotics might be necessary.
Right.
But there's also a lot you can do at home.
There is.
And many of these echo what we've already discussed.
Like what?
Saltwater gargles, saline rinses.
Yes.
They also suggest using a humidifier to add moisture to the air, especially in dry environments.
Good idea.
Staying well hydrated, which we know is crucial.
Yes.
And elevating your head while you sleep to prevent mucus from pooling in the back of your throat.
Smart.
And they advise against using decongestants
Interesting.
I always thought those were the go-to solution.
It's a common misconception.
Okay.
While they can provide temporary relief, they can actually dry out the nasal passages and thicken the mucus over time.
Ah, so it's a bit of a catch-22.
It is.
And of course, avoiding irritants like smoke. And if you're a smoker, quitting is one of the best things you can do.
Absolutely.
Now, are you ready for this? The article even delves into the connection between diet and mucus.
Okay, tell me more.
They recommend incorporating foods like garlic, radishes, and high-fiber fruits.
Okay.
And on the flip side, avoiding high-fat and dairy foods.
Interesting.
So it's all about making strategic food choices.
It is.
It's amazing how all these seemingly unrelated things can actually impact our respiratory health.
It really highlights how interconnected our bodies are.
It does.
Now, before we move on to our next source, I want to emphasize that if your mucus becomes persistent, changes color, or is accompanied by other concerning symptoms like fever or chest pain, it's essential to see a doctor.
Couldn't agree more. Always better to err on the side of caution.
Definitely.
Now let's shift gears and explore a different perspective, shall we?
Let's do it.
We have this fascinating Arabic source that delves into the potential benefits of fasting in honey for relieving mucus and throat irritation.
Wow, a completely different approach.
It is.
So fasting and honey have been used medicinally for centuries in many cultures and religions, and they really represent a more holistic approach to health and healing.
Okay, so what are some of the key takeaways from this source?
Well, they really emphasize the idea that fasting is the cornerstone of treatment.
Okay.
They discuss two types: Islamic fasting, which involves 3 days of fasting per month, and intermittent fasting, like the 168 or 186 methods.
Okay.
And then for honey, they highlight its remarkable properties: anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antifungal, and even anti-allergic.
It's like a natural medicine cabinet in a jar. And they suggest several ways to utilize its healing power, from brushing your teeth and gums with it, to gargling and rinsing, even swallowing a tablespoon 3 times daily for digestive issues.
Interesting.
But it's always wise to consult a doctor before making any significant dietary changes, especially if you have any health conditions like diabetes.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I'm curious to get your take on this from a scientific perspective.
Okay.
What do we know about the potential benefits of fasting for overall health? Could it actually have a positive impact on our immune system?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's an area of research that's really starting to heat up. While more studies are needed, there's growing evidence to suggest that fasting can indeed have a positive impact on immune function.
So it's not just about depriving yourself of food.
Right.
It's about triggering these physiological processes that can be beneficial.
Exactly. It's like giving your body a break from digestion, allowing it to focus on other processes like repair.
It's like hitting the reset button on our systems.
Yes, and it's fascinating to consider how these ancient practices might be connected to the intricate workings of our immune system.
And this Arabic source also highlights that connection between fasting and mucus management.
Right.
They suggest that fasting can actually help reduce that excess mucus production and soothe throat irritation.
Interesting. So maybe there's something to this idea of giving the body a break to focus on healing.
Yeah, it's like a hidden wisdom that's been passed down through generations.
And now we're starting to rediscover its potential.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of rediscovering wisdom, Dr. Berg's video on salt therapy really emphasized the historical use of salt for healing.
Oh yeah, he mentioned how doctors back in the 1700s were recommending trips to the sea for respiratory ailments.
Right. They also observed that people who worked in salt mines rarely got sick.
It's amazing how those observations from centuries ago are now being backed up by scientific research.
It is.
But I'm curious, is it really just the salt? Or could there be other factors at play, like the clean, fresh air at the coast, or the unique environment in a salt mine?
That's a great point. It's likely a combination of factors.
Okay.
However, Dr. Berg does make a compelling argument for the potential benefits of salt therapy, particularly when using pure sodium chloride in a controlled setting,
Okay.
like a salt room or with a halo generator.
Right, because he really highlighted how salt has those antimicrobial properties, claiming it can combat all sorts of things.
Exactly.
Viruses, bacteria,
Right.
like a natural disinfectant.
He emphasized the importance of using pure sodium chloride
Okay.
because sea salt can contain impurities that could irritate the lungs.
That makes sense.
Yes, it's always best to use the purest form possible.
But I have to admit, I'm still a bit skeptical. Is there any scientific evidence to back up these claims about salt's antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory effects?
Well, while research on salt therapy is still ongoing, there are some promising studies suggesting it might offer relief for conditions like asthma, bronchitis, and even COPD.
So it's not just anecdotal evidence.
Exactly, and it's exciting to see these traditional practices now being investigated with more rigor,
It is, yeah.
helping us separate fact from fiction.
And uncover new avenues for healing.
Exactly.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about mucus, but Dr. Berg made a really important point about the nature of most respiratory infections.
What was that?
He emphasized that most of these infections are actually viral.
Right, meaning antibiotics won't be effective.
Exactly. We often reach for antibiotics at the first sign of a cold,
We do.
but in those cases, they won't actually do anything.
Right, and in fact, they could do more harm than good.
Because overuse of antibiotics can contribute to antibiotic resistance,
Exactly.
which is a serious public health concern.
It is.
So what did Dr. Berg recommend for those viral infections?
Well, he stressed the importance of letting the immune system do its job.
Okay.
He suggests nurturing it with things like vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc.
Those are all great immune-boosting nutrients.
They are.
But what's his stance on treating symptoms like fever?
Okay, well, he actually cautions against suppressing fevers.
Really?
He says that they are a natural part of the body's immune response,
Okay.
and suppressing them can actually prolong the infection.
It's like we need to trust our bodies more.
Exactly. He also emphasized that getting sick, especially for children, is actually an important part of immune system development.
Right, like a training ground for the immune system,
That's a really good way to put it.
helping it become stronger.
Yes.
It's about finding that balance, right?
Right?
Between protecting them and allowing them to experience the world and all its microscopic inhabitants.
Well said.
Well, this has been quite a journey already,
It has.
and we've only just begun.
I know. I can't believe how much we've covered already.
I know. It's amazing how many different approaches there are to tackling something as common as a sore throat.
It is, and I'm excited to keep exploring.
Me too. So stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive where we'll delve even deeper into these ancient and modern approaches to healing.
I'm ready. You know, as we delve deeper into these sore throat solutions, it just strikes me how much we're uncovering about the body's systems.
Yeah, totally. We often think of a sore throat as just this isolated issue.
Right.
But clearly everything's connected.
It is.
Our lymphatic system, our sinuses,
Hmm.
even our gut health, they all play a role.
Speaking of gut health, remember that Arabic source we discussed?
Oh, yeah.
They emphasize fasting as a cornerstone of treatment for mucus and throat irritation.
Yeah, and they weren't just talking about any type of fasting. They specifically mentioned Islamic fasting.
Yes.
Which involves fasting for 3 days each month, and intermittent fasting, which involves cycling between periods of eating and not eating.
Right, and what's interesting is that fasting is actually gained some traction in the scientific community, not just as a spiritual practice.
So is there evidence that it actually does something beneficial for the body?
Well, emerging research suggests it could be linked to reducing inflammation and even boosting the immune system.
So it's like giving your body a break from digestion, allowing it to focus on other processes like repair and cleanup.
Exactly, and when you think about it, our ancestors didn't have constant access to food.
Right.
Fasting was a natural part of life.
Maybe we've become a little too accustomed to constant snacking.
Perhaps, but back to the Arabic source, they also highlighted honey as this powerful remedy.
Yeah, they did.
They listed so many properties: anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antifungal,
Right.
even anti-allergic.
It was like a natural medicine cabinet in a jar.
It was, and they suggested some pretty unique applications, like brushing your teeth and gums with honey.
I know, I've never heard of that before.
It is pretty unique.
Yeah.
We should always remember that while these traditional remedies are fascinating and often have anecdotal backing, it's wise to talk to your doctor
Of course.
before making any major changes, especially with fasting.
Absolutely, especially if you have any pre-existing conditions, safety first, always.
Now, while we're on the topic of ancient wisdom meeting modern science, Dr. Berg's take on salt therapy was pretty intriguing.
He did make some bold claims.
He did?
Like how salt inhalation can fight off a whole host of bad guys, viruses, bacteria, you name it.
He did, and he emphasized that inhaling pure sodium chloride is different from just eating salt.
Okay.
The idea is that it directly impacts the respiratory system,
Right.
thinning mucus, potentially creating an environment hostile to microbes.
Okay, but hold on. If most sore throats are caused by viruses, wouldn't that make salt therapy ineffective?
Well, that's where Dr. Berg's emphasis on letting the body do its work comes in.
Okay.
He sees salt therapy as a way to support the immune system, not necessarily eradicate the virus itself.
So it's more about creating an environment where your body can fight off the infection more effectively.
Exactly, and remember, he was very clear about the type of salt.
Yeah.
It needs to be pure sodium chloride, not the stuff we sprinkle on our food.
Right. We wouldn't want to be inhaling any impurities.
Exactly. But even with pure salt, I'm still a bit skeptical. Is there any research to support these claims about salt's benefits for respiratory health?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, there are actually several studies showing promising results for salt therapy, especially for conditions like asthma, bronchitis.
So it's not just a bunch of woo-woo.
There's growing evidence. Yes, of course, more research is always needed.
Of course.
But it's exciting to see ancient remedies being validated by modern science.
It really is. It makes you wonder what other gems of wisdom are waiting to be rediscovered.
Now, remember Dr. Rowe's 2-minute sore throat fix?
Oh, yeah, the neck massage one, it seemed so counterintuitive, targeting the neck to relieve a sore throat.
Right, and we questioned whether there's any scientific basis for that.
We did.
Well, while there's limited research on that specific technique, there is a growing body of evidence supporting the link between lymphatic drainage and immune function.
So is it possible that Dr. Rowe's massage, even if unintentionally, is stimulating the lymphatic system and helping the body clear out waste and reduce inflammation?
It's certainly a plausible hypothesis.
Okay.
We know the lymphatic system plays a crucial role in removing toxins in excess fluid, which can contribute to inflammation.
And his massage focuses on the area around the neck.
Right.
Where a lot of lymph nodes are concentrated.
Exactly. It might be a more indirect approach, but perhaps he's onto something.
This is what I love about these deep dives.
Me too.
We uncover these connections and possibilities we might not have considered otherwise.
Absolutely. It's about challenging assumptions and exploring different perspectives.
Speaking of perspectives, I want to loop back to that Cleveland Clinic article on postnasal drip.
Oh yes, good one.
They had a lot to say about managing this annoying condition.
They did. They covered a wide range of causes, from the common cold and allergies to more serious conditions like sinusitis,
Okay.
and even GERD, which is chronic acid reflux.
Yeah, it was a good reminder that sometimes those persistent symptoms can be a sign of something more complex going on.
Absolutely. And they emphasize the importance of seeing a doctor if you're experiencing repeated episodes of postnasal drip or any concerning symptoms,
Like what?
like fever, wheezing, or discolored mucus.
Right. Okay, so when should we just try to take care of it at home?
Well, for those more straightforward cases, they offered a ton of practical advice for at-home relief.
Like what?
Things like staying hydrated, using a humidifier,
Okay.
elevating your head while you sleep,
Right.
and gargling with salt water.
They also mentioned nasal irrigation techniques.
Yes.
Like using a neti pot to flush out excess mucus.
Ah, the neti pot.
Right.
We meet again.
I know. They also suggested applying a warm compress to the sinuses.
Yes.
To help loosen mucus and relieve pressure.
It's great that they provided such a comprehensive toolkit.
It is, but I'm curious, for those who are prone to postnasal drip, did they offer any preventative tips?
They did. They did. For those with allergies, they stressed the importance of identifying and avoiding triggers.
So things like using air purifiers, dust mite covers.
Exactly. Or simply being mindful of pollen counts.
So it's about taking proactive steps to minimize your exposure.
It is.
And they also emphasize the importance of overall good hygiene,
Right.
like washing your hands regularly and avoiding close contact with people who are sick.
Those are always good practices.
They are, regardless of whether you're dealing with postnasal drip or not.
Absolutely. Now, as we continue our exploration of sore throat remedy, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about a topic that's often overlooked.
Okay.
The importance of vocal rest.
Ah, yes, the dreaded silence treatment.
But it does make sense.
It does. If you have a sore throat, the last thing you want to do is strain those already irritated vocal cords.
Exactly. And the Cleveland Clinic article actually touched upon this,
Okay.
recommending vocal rest as a key component of sore throat recovery.
But what does vocal rest actually entail? I mean, does it mean complete silence?
Well, it depends on the severity of your sore throat.
Okay.
In some cases, complete silence might be necessary,
Okay.
especially if your vocal cords are inflamed or you're experiencing hoarseness.
So for those hardcore cases, it's all about embracing the power of nonverbal communication.
Exactly. But for milder cases, minimizing speaking and avoiding any straining or yelling is usually sufficient.
So whispering's probably okay as long as it doesn't cause any discomfort.
Right. And it's important to remember that vocal rest doesn't just mean avoiding talking.
Right.
It also means avoiding activities that can strain your vocal cords.
Things like singing or shouting.
Exactly.
Even clearing your throat too much.
That's a good point. It's like constantly irritating an already injured area.
Right. So it's all about giving those vocal cords a break.
Yes.
Allowing them to heal.
Exactly. And the article emphasizes that vocal rest can significantly speed up the healing process and prevent further damage.
Now I'm wondering, could certain remedies we've discussed actually promote vocal rest indirectly?
That's an interesting thought.
Like, think about those throat lozenges we mentioned.
Oh, yeah,
Those can definitely provide some temporary relief.
they can.
But how would those relate to vocal rest?
Well, when you suck on a lozenge, it often encourages you to swallow more frequently,
Right.
which keeps the throat moist.
And a moist throat is a happy throat.
Exactly. And that increased swallowing might also subtly discourage talking
Interesting.
indirectly promoting vocal rest.
It's like a gentle nudge from the lozenge to give your voice a break.
I love that. It's fascinating to consider these subtle connections.
It is. And now, while we're on the topic of soothing and healing the throat, I'm curious about a remedy that we haven't discussed yet.
Okay.
Gargling with baking soda?
Ah, baking soda, that versatile household staple.
I've heard of people using it for sore throats.
Yeah.
But is there any science behind that?
Well, baking soda, also known as sodium bicarbonate, is known for its alkalizing properties.
Right, and we know that an acidic environment can contribute to sore throats.
It can.
So I'm wondering if garbling with a baking soda solution could potentially help to neutralize that acidity?
That's a plausible hypothesis.
Okay.
Baking soda is often used to neutralize stomach acid in cases of heartburn.
Right.
So it's possible that it could have a similar effect on acidity in the throat.
Makes sense, but I'm also a bit wary of baking soda, like being too harsh.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
It's important to dilute it properly before using it as a gargle.
Okay, what's the recommended dilution?
A common recommendation is to mix 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon with a cup of warm water.
Okay, so as with any home remedy, it's always best to start small and see how your body reacts.
Absolutely. It's all about listening to your body's signals.
Now, I'm wondering, could there be a connection between the potential benefits of baking soda gargles and the practice of oil pulling,
That's a fascinating connection.
which we discussed earlier
We did.
in relation to hydration and mucus management?
Right. Well, both practices involve using substances that are believed to have alkalizing and detoxifying properties.
So oil pulling uses oil to draw out impurities from the mouth,
Right.
while baking soda gargles might help to neutralize acidity and cleanse the throat.
It makes you wonder if combining these two practices could potentially enhance their effectiveness.
I love where your mind is going with this.
It's all about exploring those creative combinations and seeing what happens.
Now, as we continue our exploration of sore throat relief, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about a topic that often gets overlooked:
Okay.
the role of food in the healing process.
Ah, yes. Food is medicine.
Right. It's a concept that's been around for centuries,
It has.
but it's only recently that modern science has started to catch up
Right.
and understand the profound impact that food can have on our health.
We've already talked about the importance of avoiding foods that can irritate the throat.
Right. Spicy, acidic foods.
Exactly. Those can definitely aggravate an already sore throat. But I'm curious about the flip side.
Okay.
Are there certain foods that can actually help soothe and heal a sore throat?
That's a great question. And intuitively, we often crave foods that are soft, cool, and soothing when we're not feeling well.
Like a comforting bowl of chicken soup.
Exactly. Or a cold smoothie packed with fruits and veggies.
Those could be great options.
They can.
And for those with a sweet tooth, popsicles and ice cream can also provide some temporary relief.
Of course.
Though it's important to choose options that aren't too sugary or acidic.
Right. Good point. I'm also a fan of warm broth.
Broth is a fantastic choice.
Yeah.
It's packed with nutrients. The warmth can help to loosen mucus.
Yeah, it's very soothing.
And it's easy to digest.
Yeah, which is helpful when you're not feeling your best.
Now, I'm wondering,
Yeah.
could there be a connection between the benefits of consuming soothing foods for a sore throat and the practice of applying a warm compress to the throat?
That's a fascinating observation.
It is.
So both practices involve introducing warmth to the throat area?
Right. Consuming warm foods delivers that warmth internally,
Hmm.
while a warm compress applies heat externally.
But they both can help to relax muscles, increase blood flow, and promote healing.
It makes you wonder if combining these two techniques could potentially enhance their effectiveness.
I love that idea. It's about thinking outside the box.
It is.
Exploring those creative combinations.
Now, as we continue our culinary journey through sore throat remedies,
I like that.
I'm curious about a specific fruit that's often recommended.
Okay.
Bananas.
Bananas, they are a classic go-to.
They are.
Soft, easy to swallow, gentle on the throat.
Exactly. And they're a good source of potassium,
Okay.
which can be helpful for maintaining electrolyte balance, especially if you've been experiencing fever or sweating.
So they're both soothing and nourishing.
They are, but I'm wondering,
Yeah.
could there be a connection between the benefits of consuming bananas for a sore throat and the practice of gargling with salt water?
That's an interesting question. I mean, both practices involve soothing and cleansing the throat,
Right.
but in different ways.
Exactly.
Bananas provide that soft, soothing texture,
Yes.
while saltwater gargles help to cleanse and reduce inflammation.
It makes you wonder if incorporating both into a sore throat self-care routine could potentially enhance their effectiveness.
Yeah, it's all about exploring those possibilities.
It is, absolutely.
Now, as we delve deeper into this fascinating world of sore throat remedies, I'm curious about another aspect we haven't touched upon yet:
Okay, what's that?
The role of certain beverages.
Oh, okay.
We've already talked about staying hydrated,
We have.
and water is always a top choice for that.
It is.
But I'm wondering if there are other beverages that could be particularly helpful for soothing and healing a sore throat.
Well, warm liquids are often recommended.
Right, right. I remember my grandmother always making me a warm cup of honey and lemon when I had a sore throat.
That's a classic remedy for a reason. Honey can help to coat and soothe the throat.
Yeah.
And lemon provides vitamin C and can help to thin mucus.
And then we have herbal teas,
Yes.
like chamomile, ginger, slippery elm,
Or good options.
which can also provide soothing and anti-inflammatory properties.
And some people find relief from drinking warm milk with a pinch of turmeric,
Turmeric, yeah.
which, as we know, is a potent anti-inflammatory.
It is, but I'm wondering, could there be a connection between the benefits of drinking warm beverages for a sore throat and the practice of applying a warm compress to the throat?
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, both practices involve introducing warmth to the throat area, right?
Right, drinking warm beverages delivers that warmth internally,
Yeah.
while a warm compress applies heat externally.
And both can help to relax muscles, increase blood flow, promote healing.
Exactly. It makes us wonder if combining these two techniques could potentially enhance their effectiveness.
It's fascinating to consider those potential synergies.
Absolutely. It's all about finding what works best for you.
Now, before we move on to part 3 of this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to touch upon something we've been circling around this whole time.
Okay, what's that?
The idea of the body's innate healing ability.
Yes, it's really been a central theme throughout our exploration.
It has, and it seems like so many of these remedies are ultimately about supporting the body's own mechanisms for repair and recovery.
Exactly. It's not necessarily about finding a magic bullet,
Right.
but rather about creating an environment where the body can do what it does best, heal.
So whether that's through reducing inflammation, boosting the immune system, or simply providing soothing relief, it's all about working with the body,
Yes,
not against it.
I love that. It's about recognizing the body's wisdom and empowering it to do its thing.
And it's a reminder that we're not just passive recipients of health.
Right.
We are active participants in our own well-being.
So true. And that brings us to a crucial question.
Okay.
What can we do to cultivate this inner resilience?
Yeah, how can we strengthen our body's ability to bounce back from those inevitable sore throats and other health challenges? Okay, I'm ready for some empowering advice. Where do we even begin?
All right, we're back.
For the final stretch of our sore throat deep dive.
We've covered so much.
I know.
Ancient remedies to modern science.
And it seems like a recurring theme has been trusting the body's own ability to heal.
Absolutely.
It's like all these different approaches,
Yes.
gargling, fasting.
Right.
It's all about creating the conditions for the body to heal itself.
Exactly.
So it's not about finding that one magic cure-all.
Right.
It's about supporting those natural processes.
That brings us to a really important question.
Okay.
What can we do to actively cultivate that inner resilience? How can we make our bodies better at bouncing back from sore throats?
Okay, I'm ready for some empowering advice. Where do we even begin?
One thing that keeps coming up in our sources,
Yeah.
the importance of sleep.
Sleep. Okay.
It sounds so basic,
It does.
but so many of us are chronically sleep deprived.
It's true. It's like we wear our busyness as a badge of honor.
Right.
But when we're constantly burning the candle at both ends,
Yes.
our immune system takes a hit.
And when you think about it, most of us instinctively crave rest when we're sick.
Right.
It's our body's way of saying, hey, I need some downtime.
So maybe instead of powering through it, we should just listen to those signals and actually give our bodies the rest they need.
Prioritizing sleep isn't just about feeling less tired.
Right.
It's about supporting your immune system.
Okay, sleep is officially at the top of my self-care to-do list. What else can we do?
Well, we talked a lot about specific nutrients like vitamin C and zinc.
Right, Dr. Berg really emphasized those.
He did.
Especially for fighting off viruses.
Exactly. And while getting these nutrients through a balanced diet is ideal, sometimes supplementation can be helpful,
Okay.
especially if you're feeling run down.
So maybe it's worth talking to your doctor about a vitamin C or zinc supplement during cold and flu season.
Definitely something to consider.
Now, another area that I think often gets overlooked when we think about sore throats is stress management.
Oh, stress, yes, the silent killer.
But how does stress actually impact our ability to fight off a sore throat?
Well, when we're chronically stressed, our body is in this constant state of fight or flight, which means our immune system is on high alert, diverting energy away from other essential processes.
Like healing.
Exactly.
So our body's too busy dealing with perceived threats to focus on fixing a scratchy throat.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, but we can't always eliminate stress from our lives.
True.
Deadlines, bills, family drama, it's all part of the human experience.
It is.
So what are some practical strategies for managing stress?
Well, there are so many great options.
Yeah.
It's really about finding what works best for you. Some people find relief through mindfulness practices,
Okay.
like meditation or deep breathing exercises.
I've heard amazing things about meditation.
Yes.
It's definitely on my list to try.
Others find solace in nature,
Nature.
spending time outdoors, soaking up the sunshine.
That sounds lovely.
Exercise is also a fantastic stress reliever.
Exercise. Okay.
It doesn't have to be anything intense.
Right.
Even a brisk walk or some gentle yoga can do wonders.
Okay, so it's about finding those activities that help you de-stress and incorporating them into your routine.
Exactly.
Even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
And sometimes it's the simplest things that can make the biggest difference.
Like what?
Taking a few deep breaths before responding to a stressful email.
Okay.
Listening to calming music during your commute.
Those are good tips. I like that.
It's about finding those pockets of peace throughout the day.
Right, to help reset and recharge.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up this whole deep dive, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier.
Okay.
The fascinating world of herbal teas.
Ah, yes, those steaming cups of comfort.
They always seem to make you feel better, whether you have a sore throat or not.
Right, but they're more than just a comforting ritual.
Okay.
Herbal teas have been used for centuries in traditional medicine for their healing properties.
Right, and we talked about chamomile, ginger, slippery elm, all great for sore throats.
They are. Chamomile is known for its calming effects, which can be helpful for sleep.
Mm.
Ginger has those potent anti-inflammatory properties.
Right.
And slippery elm is known for its ability to coat and soothe irritated tissues.
It sounds like there are so many good options out there.
There are, but is there something about the simple act of sipping on a warm beverage that promotes healing?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think there's something to be said for the ritualistic and soothing aspects of it.
Right, it's like a moment of self-care.
Exactly.
Time to pause, breathe, nurture yourself.
And that intentionality, that act of choosing to care for yourself, can be really powerful.
It's like sending a message to your body.
Yes.
That you're listening, that you're supporting its healing journey.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm wondering, what if the most effective sore throat remedy isn't just one thing? What if it's a combination of approaches? Ancient wisdom, modern science, and mindful self-care.
I love that. It's like weaving together all these threads to create a tapestry of healing.
Exactly. It's about drawing upon all these remedies and finding what works best for us.
It's about becoming our own health advocates.
Yes.
Informed by both tradition and science.
And empowered to create a personalized path to well-being.
And it's about embracing the journey of self-discovery.
It is.
Exploring different approaches with curiosity.
Because ultimately, healing is a multifaceted process.
Yeah.
It's a dance between our inner wisdom and the wisdom of the ages.
So there you have it, our deep dive into sore throat remedies.
We've covered a lot of ground.
From the practical to the profound.
I hope you've gained some valuable insights.
I hope so too. Remember, your body is incredibly resilient, and there are so many tools available to support its natural healing abilities, so the next time a sore throat strikes, don't just reach for the cough drops, tap into the wisdom of the ages, explore those different approaches, and trust your body to heal and thrive.